years ago when I was a small girl. I remember a terrible night. It was the 6th night of December, and the snow was falling especially hard. The air in my room wasn't just cold. It felt like a freezer had been left open, chilling the sweat on my palms. But that wasn't why I was shaking. It was the sound I heard. It wasn't the sweet, innocent jingle of Santa's bells. It was a deep, earth-shaking clang. Clang! Clang! Like someone was dragging a 100-pound sack of broken iron across the frozen cobblestone street. Each strike sounding too heavy, too deliberate. I remember I pulled my blanket up to my nose, trapping the stale air of my own fear inside, and I squeezed my eyes shut so hard the darkness was streaked with green light. They said it was just a story. They said Krampus only came for the truly bad children. But I hadn't eaten my peas, and I'd used Father Saul to cut down my neighbor's prize-winning rosebush after she had yelled at me. But no one had seen me do it. The terrible metal noise didn't fade. It stopped. Right outside my bedroom window. Clang! Then dead silence. My father's deep, rhythmic snores from down the hall, blissfully unaware, and the tiny, maddening tick, tick, tick of my clock counting down the final seconds of my freedom were the only thing breaking that horrible silence. Then a new sound. It was the noise of something heavy and hoofed, pulling away from the frozen asphalt, followed by the slow, grinding crunch on the icy snow right below my window ledge. I held my breath until my lungs burned. I didn't see the gentle flash of a reindeer antler. I saw a shadow move across the pale square of moonlight on my floor. It was impossibly tall. It was wider than the chimney. It had horns, black and jagged against the pale white light. A slow, heavy breathing, the kind a beast makes, came from the other side of the thin glass. The glass of my window began to vibrate. A thrumming resonance I could feel in my teeth. Then that voice. A sound that stripped what little warmth was left. A low, wet, guttural rasp that sounded like rocks being dragged across wet crag. It didn't whisper. It rumbled my name. I'm Courtney.
And I'm Brandon. And welcome to the Time Travelers Club Holiday Special. That was awfully bright after that cold open. I won't lie. Jarring.
I had fun with that one, I'm not gonna lie.
You did, girl. Go sign up for like those audiobooks. Go voice act. That was good. That was good. You came out pocket with that, and I'm just like, damn.
It's okay.
You paint a picture, though. You paint a picture, and you're going to make an excellent, crazy old lady one day.
It'll be fun. I'm so excited.
So, the holiday season is famously a time for joy, carols, and the promise of presents from a jolly, fat, white-bearded man. But in the Alpine regions of Central Europe, the narrative takes a decidedly darker turn. When the good children are nestled in their beds, dreaming of sugar plums, a different figure stalks the snowy streets. A horned, shaggy, demonic beast, armed with switches and chains. This is Krampus, and his story is far more ancient, thrilling, and complex than any tale of a lump of coal. This is the story of how a pagan monster was tamed, Christianized, and then spectacularly resurrected to become the ultimate symbol of holiday fear and fun.
I love that so much.
And fun. Isn't it fun to just
It's
imagine
fun to
little
be
kids
afraid.
getting their ass whooped? Like,
I mean, sometimes. Occasionally.
Sometimes. God, it needs to be someone's job, just like all the little bad kids in the neighborhood. Like, all right, this year you're designated Krampus. Go scare the shit out of them.
I mean, technically, there are communities that still do that. So,
Yes, and we're going to go through with that. We're going to talk about it.
yeah.
So, before that, though, before we delve into the misty origins of the beast, let's set the scene with the folklore as it's told today in Austria, Bavaria, and other alpine areas. The night of December 5th. The night is cold. The air is crisp with the smell of wood smoke and snow. It is Krampusnacht, or Krampus night, the eve of St. Nicholas Day, which is December 6th. In a small wooden alpine home, a family gathers. A knock comes at the door, but it's not the cheerful jingle jingle you might expect. It's a rhythmic thud, the sound of a wooden staff. The door opens and children gasp. First, St. Nicholas enters. He is tall, solemn, dressed in bishop's robe, often carrying a ledger. He smiles kindly, asks the children to recite a short prayer or song, then checks his book. For the good children, he leaves small gifts, apples, nuts, perhaps a small toy. Before departing with a benevolent nod, his work is done. But wait, a second sound is heard before the door closes. The loud, frantic rattling of rusty chains, the heavy clomp clomp of hooves on wood, and a deep, guttural growl, and the smell of mountain pine and sulfur. Into the house bursts Krampus.
He is a sight to behold, a true nightmare come to life. His head is adorned with long, twisting horns, sometimes like a goat, sometimes like a ram. His body is covered in a thick, shaggy coat of brown or black fur. A long, pointed, serpentine tongue lolls from his mouth, and his hooves crush the floorboards. He carries 2 instruments of discipline: a bundle of birch branches, a root, and the heavy rattling chains and bells that announce his terrifying presence. Krampus is not here for lectures or carrots. He is here for the truly naughty, the selfish, the liars, the mean-spirited. While St. Nicholas rewards, Krampus punishes. He snatches up the worst offenders, swatting them with the root, stuffing them into a wicker basket or a sack, and dragging them off to his lair, which is often said to be underground or perhaps even in hell itself. The message is clear. The holiday season demands good behavior, and the consequences for failing are immediate, loud, and painful. This terrifying ritual, known as the Krampuslauf, the Krampus run, when performed on the streets, is the traditional story's climax. Now, to understand Krampus, we must pull back the curtain of time, past the bishop and the birch, all the way to pre-Christian Europe. Krampus is not just a holiday devil. He is a spectacular pagan survivor. The most significant and debated connection is Krampus's relationship to the concept of the horned god, a generalized figure often representing male fertility, the hunt, and the cycles of life, death, and rebirth within European paganism. Figures like the Celtic Cernunnos or the Greek Pan share Krampus's chthonic relating to the underworld, nature, and goat-like features. And Cernunnos very much like, honestly, yes. Pan is more like humanistic, but Cernunnos
Hmm.
definitely like this is almost a
I
one
can,
for one, but more of
I
a
can,
terrifying version.
I could see both
Mhm.
because Pan is the origin for pandemonium,
Yes.
panic. It's fear. And he's known for being disruptive and blah, and like scaring the out of people. It's meant to be more jovial. Like he's not like an actual threat,
Yeah.
whereas the Runos is. He's more
Well, yes.
ominous. It's like the looming. Like he's not
Yes.
like going boogie booga booga. He's just
No.
there silently looming in like you're like I'm dead.
Well,
So it is
think
kind
about
of
it
like
this way.
combining half and half.
Yes, think about it this way. Pan and Cernunnos are related to the wilds. This
Yeah,
is the uncivilized structures that lie outside of cities and towns. This is the dangerous
absolutely.
area, and that's what they represent. This is terrifying to people.
Well, and also when we're talking, we talked about Rome, right? When
Hmm.
we're talking about Mark Antony, and we made the little comments about the difference between like Transalpine Gaul and Cisalpine Gaul.
Yeah.
This is that region of just straight up Alpine,
Yep.
right? They're going to be influenced by both cultures,
Absolutely.
Gauls, aka Celts, and the Romans and Greeks. Like they're in that central nexus. So it doesn't really surprise me if they are like all of this is being influenced by that.
Hmm.
Because they are dead set in the middle.
Agreed. So the crucial link is the time of year and the wild hunt, wild jagd, or Rauhnacht. So, winter solstice figures. The time around the winter solstice, which aligns with Krampusnacht, was historically seen as the period when the veil between the worlds was the thinnest. This allowed spirits, demons, and the restless dead to roam freely. Krampus, in his wild, shaggy form, is the perfect manifestation of the disorder and chaos that precedes the promise of spring. Now, the leader of the hunt, the wild hunt, a common myth across Germanic and Norse cultures, features a host of spectral riders sweeping through the night sky, often led by a powerful, dark male figure, sometimes Woden or Odin, sometimes a nameless demonic entity. Krampus's noisy, chaotic run, the Krampuslauf, is a localized, earthbound echo of this mythic, fearsome procession. The rattling chains and bells are not just for discipline, they are the symbolic cacophony of the spirit world riding out the darkness.
The costume itself reinforces these pagan ties using materials that hold ritual significance. Animal hides were often used. The goat or sheep furs link Krampus directly to the animal realm and ancient agrarian rituals involving sacrifice or reverence for livestock. It is a suit of wildness. When we talked about Dionysus, they had similar rituals with where they would wear goat skins or depending on how wealthy they were, leopard skins. But either way, it was this like a connection to a wild place.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the birch root, and not root, but root. The bundle of birch branches is a powerful Germanic symbol. It was traditionally used in purification rituals, not just for punishment, but to drive out evil spirits or illness from people and fields. When Krampus strikes, he is, ironically, enacting a form of aggressive cleansing rooted in nature worship.
Mm-hmm.
His long, often obscene red tongue is not just a frightening detail. It symbolizes the bestial and uncontrolled appetite.
And it kind of reminds me, honestly, of Kalima
Mm,
because of that same mythology where she does have a drive, a incurable appetite, for
Mhm.
demon blood. This is very similar.
Yeah, and like at the end of these winter months too, like you have to think like that hunger is gnawing at
Mhm.
you, right? And like it's only spring can cure that.
Mhm.
So, in these early pagan winter rituals, masked individuals would run through the streets, making loud noises to drive out the spirits of winter and ensure a fertile spring. Krampus may well be the direct descendant of these maskers, a primal, noisy manifestation of the season's darker side, truly civilized, a stark contrast to the restrained, pious St. Nicholas. In this light, Krampus is not just the devil's helper. He is an ancient mountain spirit that the church was forced to acknowledge, bind with chains in an act of Christian submission, and redirect toward the moral teaching. His longevity is a testament to the fact that people crave the thrill of this untamed pre Christian shadow alongside the structured quote unquote goodness of the modern holiday. When the Christian church spread across Europe, it faced a choice: eradication of these popular pagan practices, or co opt and domesticate them. In the Alpine regions, they chose the latter. The local horned beast, the personification of winter's menace, was neatly rebranded as a demon or devil. By giving him horns or keeping them, the church explicitly linked him to the imagery of Satan. This stripped the figure of his pagan divinity, but it made him a useful tool for Christian morality.
So ultimately, the tying in between Pan, Cernunnos, even Bahamut, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or Baphomet. Um, they use the horns
Mm-hmm.
as just a terrifying symbol because seeing that on a person is scary, right? They turned all of these things into demons or into devils, but they never were initially.
Right. They were way more gray and nuanced. You know,
Mhm.
like even Pan, he could be sometimes he's jolly and like just like a silly guy.
Mhm.
There's times where he's just like, oh, and you see him on like Greek Faces with his dick out, and he's just with a big old boner, and it's just like you can't even take him serious, right?
Yeah.
And then like also at the same time, as we just said, like his name also is where the term panic comes from. He could be brutal and be that, like, if you underestimate the wild or forget that the wild is a dangerous place, then it can kill you,
Mhm.
right? So they're gray. They're not morally one way or the other. But that doesn't fit within Christian morality in general,
Mhm.
like Judeo-Christian morality. But B, it their frightening appearance, like you just said, is such a good tactic to be like, look at these old pagan gods. Clearly, these were evil things,
Mhm.
because they look terrifying, especially when people are forgetting the origins of these things. So, yeah. So the crucial turning point was pairing him with the virtuous Greek-born Saint Nicholas, who embodied the church's ideals of charity, piety, and rewarding the faithful. I do think one day we're going to have to cover Saint Nicholas, but not today. Not today.
Agreed.
If I remember correctly, there's chopped up kids and stuff like that, but which is dark.
Indeed.
But but that's a story for another day. So, by shackling Krampus, literally with chains, to the saint, the church created a perfect, in their eyes anyway, dualistic system. Nicholas represented grace and reward. Krampus represents sin and consequence. The terrifying demon now served the saint, confirming that even the wildest evil is subservient to Christian goodness. This is a shift in role. He moved from being a wild spirit to a disciplinarian. His function was no longer to drive out winter, but to enforce good behavior and religious observance among children and sometimes adults.
I have inappropriate comments for that. I'm going to keep them to myself. So
Well, chains and whips, baby. Chains and whips.
all day, baby. So Krampus's history is a relentless tug of war between official disapproval and intense popular affection. He has been banned, feared, and commercialized, yet he always returns louder and scarier than ever. So between the 17th and 19th centuries, this is the consolidation of the folklore. During this period, the traditions we know today really did solidify. Craftsmen began making intricate Krampus masks, larvae, from wood, often pine or lime, and adorning them with real animal horns. The Krampus run, the Krampuslauf, became a fixture in local town life, with groups of young men forming clubs dedicated to embodying the frightening figures. These runs were, and still are, often chaotic and intense, blending folklore with genuine adrenaline and occasionally a bit too much schnapps. A unique commercial aspect also emerged. The Krampus card. The Krampuskarten. These were early Christmas cards, but instead of snowmen and holly, they featured Krampus chasing children, standing over prone figures, or even in surprisingly suggestive scenarios.
Are we surprised?
Not at all.
Again,
I'm here for it.
If Pan's one of the original, I don't know. I think I kind of love this. Like, I would love to receive a card with Krampus, like, being all scary and shit with a big old dong. Let's reenact that. Let's make that our Christmas card.
Back. We have to bring that back next year. Absolutely. We're doing the Krampus card.
You're Hannah, your little old Hannah, and like, I'm Krampus, like, I'm back for you, bitch. Oh, no.
So these cards popularized his image far beyond the mountains. Now, Krampus is not just a seasonal demon. He is a symbol of cultural resistance. Throughout the 20th century, various political and religious authorities attempted to suppress the noisy, chaotic, and often drunken tradition, viewing it as a threat to their preferred vision of order and piety. His survival through these crackdowns is a testament to the stubborn power of localized folk culture. And actually, this reminds me of a image that I saw where it's depicting order and chaos. And if we are looking at natural order, it's showing actually like a pine stem with all the needles. And it's chaotic in how it looks, but that is the natural order. So that is actually order. Chaos is when you try to sort and organize, and it has all of the needles off of the pine. It has the bare pine twig and everything sorted and organized into neat little rows, and that is actual chaos. And so it's hilarious to me finding that parallel just in history constantly, where they are trying to suppress the natural order. They are trying to suppress the natural way that people live and put it into a chaotic form that they're trying to fit people into a box. That's not how life works.
Oh, absolutely. And that's still going on to this day.
Absolutely.
And I think it's just how our monkey brains work. We like to see patterns. And when we don't understand the pattern, we decide that we're going to make the pattern. So,
absolutely.
And like you said, it's like, yes, like it looks kind of crazy, but like when you actually look at the pine needles, you realize, oh, everything does line up and things like that. And clearly it works. It's a plant that's been around longer than deciduous trees and things like that, like maple. Yet the moment you take it apart and quote unquote organize it, it's useless. It can't do anything. It's dead.
Exactly.
So what, right.
So even after the church co-opted Krampus by coupling him with St. Nicholas, the relationship remained uneasy. Many conservative Catholic clergy viewed the Krampuslauf as a heathen spectacle and a source of debauchery. I don't know, sound like Lupercalia, anyone? The
I was going to say,
sheer
I'm sure in their
visceral
bedroom, Krampus visits every year.
Absolutely. 100%. The sheer visceral chaos, the frightening masks, and the potential for public disorder were deemed inappropriate for the holy season of Advent. Now, of course, there were going to be moral objections. The runs often devolved into heavy drinking and aggressive behavior, especially among the young men portraying Krampus. The church condemned this as a descent into pagan immorality. Suck my dick. Then, of course, that's my answer to that.
That's what Krampus would say too.
Exactly. I'm a descendant. That's fine. So, the problem of transgression. The tradition fundamentally allowed for sanctioned transgression, a brief period where the established rules of behavior were inverted. This deeply unsettled authorities committed to strict discipline. I also wonder if this is also kind of one of those callbacks to like Saturnalia.
A release valve.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of this, Christmas itself was inspired by Saturnalia and things like the idea of like direct things from Saturnalia, right?
Absolutely.
The decorating your home with boughs and greenery, Saturnalia. Gift giving, Saturnalia. The feasting where everyone gets together, Saturnalia. Now, yes, the slaves aren't pretending to be masters, and we aren't like, on leashes being led by our slaves. Okay, it's not as kinky as it used to be.
Damn.
But also, I'm glad we all have slaves. So, like, I guess I'll take that. But it's
true enough.
Like, yeah, a lot of these traditions, of course, are callbacks to these much older, quote unquote, pagan traditions. So, yes, Saturnalia is clearly a part of this. You could even call the Lupercalia these ideas of young men, in dress outside of the norm, right? I mean, I guess they're not naked running through the snow or anything, though that would be cool.
Actually, that would be very cold, I would say.
Yeah. But yeah, I was gonna say you wouldn't see much. Everything shriveled up. Twig and berries. So but it is the same concept, right? Lupercalia, as we discussed, was that release valve for Rome. And this is a similar situation. And even during Lupercalia, you had people like Cicero who were convulsing on the floor after he slipped in mysterious fluids, but couldn't stand it. Couldn't stand the idea, because there's some people who have a stick up their butt,
or they really want one.
It's probably because they really want one. Yeah. Speaking of people who want things up their butt, fascists.
Should we talk about the grinder pandemic? Oh, didn't say that.
No.
Oh.
So, like any good Christmas story, it's time to talk about fascism, folks, and how they're always trying to ruin our holidays. So this is not going to surprise anyone, but the most serious attempts to extinguish Krampus came from the authoritarian political regimes of the 1920s and 30s and into the 40s.
I wonder why.
I was going to say, I wonder who was involved. So, first we have but it wasn't just him, okay? It wasn't the guy with the weird just the guy with the weird mustache. We like to put all our blame on one person whenever we deal with any of these kinds of things in history. But fascism existed outside of Germany. And in fact, they were eager to work with him, right? So first, there's the Austro-fascism of the 1930s. So conservative and nationalist movements in Austria viewed Krampus as a symbol of cultural degeneration and what they feel was un-Austrian, which is really ironic, or I know. It's like, you're so un-Austrian. It's like, wait a minute. You're said the super conservative Catholic people who are based off of a religion that came from Italy, that was inspired by a religion that came from Greece, that was inspired by a religion that came from some guy who came from Judea. But yet the indigenous folklore guy character
He's the bad guy, of course.
and is un-Austrian. Okay, sure. Anyway, but they also viewed it as primitive mountain superstition, which it kind of was, but that's okay. It's okay. Like, it's not that serious. They sought to promote a sanitized, and pious, orderly Christmas centered solely around St. Nicholas. Did I mention sanitized?
Mm-hmm.
Then we do have the Nazis, the famous fascists, right?
Mm-hmm.
The German Reich also officially condemned the tradition. While the Nazis selectively utilized certain elements of Germanic paganism, so it's interesting because they're kind of on the opposite side of that, for their own propaganda. They like the big, tall, blonde, buff guys, and the ladies with the beer and the big boobies. They were cool with that paganism, but not the rest of it. Cherry picking things that they like. Where have we heard this before?
Sounds biblical.
Sounds evangelical. So because of that, they dismissed Krampus as an unacceptable form of chaos and folk Catholic superstition, which is hilarious because it's not. I mean, the Catholics don't want them. These weird German Nazi pagans don't want them. But propaganda materials were released warning people against the quote evil foreign-born demon. Which are we surprised that the fascists were lying?
No, never.
Are we surprised? Right.
No.
Instead promote quote purely Germanic figures. They saw a rigidly controlled public sphere, and the drunken, chaotic, uncontrollable nature of Krampuslof was intolerable. That's the truth of it.
Yep.
That's the truth. In both instances, the tradition was officially banned or strongly discouraged through propaganda and police enforcement, especially in major urban centers. However, deep in the Alpine valleys and remote villages, the custom persisted. The very act of carving the forbidden masks and staging the run became a quiet cultural act of defiance against state control. So Krampus is officially Antifa.
I gotta order a mask now. Damn.
So, following World War II, the tradition not only returned, but of course experienced a robust revival. This resurgence was fueled by several factors. The reassertion of local identity after years of foreign occupation and state-imposed ideology, celebrating local and regional traditions became a way to reclaim cultural identity and autonomy. Because I think here, especially in America, we have this idea where we lump people in Europe together. Like they're all German, right? No. Bavaria is culturally very different than like the areas around Berlin and things like that. You have to remember, like Germany was originally the Holy Roman Empire. That thing that none of us historians like to do because it's so confusing. There's like 1,000 different little principalities and all these and it's always shifting and changing. But that's because for a long time, this was a very mountainous region full of rivers and forests that separated peoples. So they culturally developed very differently. Yes, they were united by similar language and some cultural cultural identifiers and stuff, but even that story, like the idea that they have this quote unquote shared culture, was something that came during the 19th century when the these German aristocrats during 1848 were trying to create this idea of a unified Germany.
Mm-hmm.
So even that's kind of false news. And there's a reason that fell apart. Because that wasn't the case. And right up until the fall of World War One, technically, the Kaiser ruled multiple German kingdoms. Right? He was an emperor, not a king. That means he controlled Brandenburg, right, in Prussia,
Mm-hmm.
and then you had Bavaria and this, I forget what the third one is, but they were three big kingdoms technically, which within that had microcultures. So that's why the Nazis really hated this, because it didn't fit this unified German culture. So when they're gone, they're going to establish their own identities again.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we mentioned a need for release. This was always that every year you have this festival. It was a release valve. And for years, it had been brutally suppressed, right? So in the post-war era, they saw an outlet for all that pent-up energy and the desire to connect to the raw pre-war cultural past. And then finally, there was capitalism, baby. That's the other reason. You have to think too a lot. Post-World War, you have like all these soldiers coming through, and there's this rise in tourism and commercialization. All these soldiers from America, England, France, they're all kind of there and they're making their way back and stuff, but you have this whole tourist trade that's building. And as Austria and other Alpine nations developed their tourism industries, the unique and thrilling Krampus tradition proved to be a spectacular draw. Krampuslauf was no longer just for locals. It became a marketable and internationally appealing event. Today, the political tension remains, though it usually framed in terms of public safety, managing the massive crowds, and sometimes aggressive behavior of the performances, rather than an ideological disapproval, which I can get that. Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes this shit can get out of hand. Like we have Mardi Gras here, and it's kind of the same things. Like you do have people like it's immoral and blah, 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 whatever. My big concern is that sometimes you do get people, when you have that many drunk people together and that many beads that people are fighting over and titties out.
Sometimes it gets a little
Or
unruly.
sometimes someone's peeing off the balcony because they're pissed. They're literally pissed drunk. And they pee on you, and you're mad. So then you throw something at them, and then someone whips out a gun. Anyway, because that's America.
True.
But I can see that. I can see that. But Krampus' status as a survivor, a figure who defied fascists and priests, only adds to his rebellious spirit.
Absolutely. So the heart of the Krampus tradition today is the Krampuslauf. That dramatic, terrifying street performance that transforms a quiet evening into a chaotic, adrenaline-fueled spectacle. This ritual is far removed from the polite Christmas parades of other countries. It is a meticulously orchestrated riot of sound, smell, and visual terror. The run is carried out by organized groups called Passen. And joining a pass is a serious commitment. Members spend the entire year preparing and carving their own expensive wooden masks, stitching their heavy fur suits, and maintaining their chains and bells. But the ritual of dressing, getting into costume, is a ritualistic act itself. The masks are heavy, hot, and restrict visibility. The fur suits are bulky. The total ensemble can weigh 50 to 70 pounds. Performers often consume significant amounts of alcohol before dressing to help cope with the heat and the intensity of the performance, contributing to the aggressive atmosphere.
Which I'm like the opposite here. I'm like, I run hot.
Yeah.
So the idea of getting drunk and then putting on all that hot, heavy bullshit.
Oh, yeah, fuck that.
But at least they're outside in the cold.
Yeah, true. True.
Yeah.
So the Krampuslauf is planned It's a planned procession through a town's main square or streets, but its effect is one of total primal disorder. So the defining characteristic is noise. As the Passan approach, the collective sound of dozens of heavy iron bells and rattling chains creates an overwhelming acoustic wall. This is a deliberate psychological assault, announcing the arrival of the terrifying figures before they are ever seen. The performers stomp with their heavy hooves, swinging their chains, and often use smoke machines or flares to add a hellish atmosphere. The air fills with the smell of wet fur, wood smoke, and sweat. While the runs are now primarily for show and tourism, the Krampus figures still engage in mock disciplinary action. They will often single out spectators, grabbing them, growling, and sometimes giving them a light tap with a root, the birch switches. This is a calculated risk for the spectator, a brief, sanctioned moment of being targeted by the monster.
It sounds hot. It sounds kinky, and they don't have to be light. When we go, I'll be like, pick me, pick me.
So you and I are going to be sitting on the sidelines like the women at Lupercalia.
When we time travel, we're gonna be like, you're gonna see paintings and pictures of two people, one ginger and one big girl, and they're gonna be bent over in like every damn painting. Like,
Daddy. Fuck. Oh my God.
we're just there for all the spanking festivals. That's all we're using this for.
Absolutely. Oh my God. So, St. Nicholas often walks at the head of the procession, attempting to maintain order and offer a contrast to the beast. He is the anchor of Christian morality. But the Krampus figures clearly steal the show. His presence validates the spectacle, reminding everyone that the chaos is contained and it serves a moral purpose. So, the modern Krampusloft taps into a deep human need, the controlled experience of fear. For the performer, it is a release, an opportunity to shed one's identity and embody a monstrous, unrestrained force. The anonymity of the mask is crucial. It allows for behaviors that would be unacceptable in daily life. And as to the spiritual component of this, because there is one, like, let's be real, it is a ritual, and it is a spiritual ritual. In spiritualism, when you put on a mask, you are literally shedding who you are and taking on that thing's identity. And I've experienced it, and it is visceral.
Mm-hmm.
It is so visceral.
Well, it's really, when we're thinking about this, as we're describing this right now, how similar is it to Halloween? Right?
Incredibly.
Like dead ass. Like, the idea, A, the people it pisses off.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Same people are mad. B,
Mad.
B, and for the same reasons, right? But B, like, this idea of, like you said, the mask, you're taking on this new identity, right? It's controlled fear, right? It's no different than like the Halloween festivals, or like, you go into the haunted house, right? You're not in actual danger, but like, it's like a controlled environment that's tricking your natural like instincts, right? Because of it being unexpected. Like, I remember being a kid, and when we went to like a haunted house, someone grabbed my little sister's leg. So my sister's
How much did she scream?
Oh, girl. So she's autistic, okay? So with that being said, she's neurospicy and reacts to things differently. You or I would scream. She reacted on instinct, which was, so she was dressed as Aurora that year. And she had gotten it at the Disney store, and they had this wand and it was the early 2000s, so everything used double D batteries.
Oh no.
So she smote him like that, ass swung down, and he broke character. It went, a motherfucker. So I had to grab her, run to the end, grab the candy from the witch, and then run back out. Because this guy, I think he was dressed as like a werewolf and like under the table, and he grabbed her. And she's like, "You peasant!" And I just beat him down. I'm like,
I'm dying. This is great. Oh my
yeah,
god.
there's survival. To be fair, she's not dying in a horror movie.
No, she's not. She's gonna fuck somebody up. Oh my god.
Like that was the like scary movie. Like comes out with a knife, fucking beats him with a chair, and doesn't run. Just continues to beat him. Like that's
you
my
know
sister.
what? You know what? I respect that though, because she's gonna get the job done instead of like one hit and running. I love it. I love it.
Just cap it off, to give you an idea, my sister, my grown ass sister, right? Because we're about the same age, we're 11 months apart. So she's 32, is like a size 0, 5'3". Like, so imagine little 8-year-old version of that taking on a grown ass man.
Oh my god.
Like, that's, she's the reason, like, I'm a feminist. Like, all these people are like, well, women, it's their biology, they're built different. I watched an 8-year-old princess put the smackdown on a grown-ass werewolf.
Yes! She's my spirit animal. I want to be her when I grow up. Oh my god.
Oh my god, I have so many stories about that, but we'll get way too sidetracked. But that all being said, a lot of this, she was manifesting there. She was like, I am royalty.
Yes, she is.
Damn. Put on the mask, and she's like, I am royalty, and I'll be damned. But like that may just be her normal personality. But yeah, a lot of that. But my point is that, right, you're a performer, and you see this in acting and kabuki theater a lot. Mm-hmm. Once you put on the mask, it's weird. It's like it's not, at first I'm sure it is just like, oh, I'm acting. But eventually you kind of become that.
Yes.
You are that. And it's I've heard this described where it's this almost like out of body experience where you are both there, but you've completely changed. Exactly. And you're not yourself.
Exactly. Very much so. And it's honestly, I encourage everyone to offer yourself up to experience at one time in your life, because it is profound. Mm-hmm. But obviously, it's not just the performance, is it? It's also the spectators. For the spectators, it is a thrilling communal experience of being momentarily chased and menaced by pure folklore, the mythology coming to life. It is an acknowledgement that darkness exists, but it can be confronted, survived, and ultimately celebrated as part of the winter tradition. The Krampuslauf is the ultimate embodiment of the holiday spirit's shadow side. Loud, frightening, and deeply cathartic.
And as for that guy who was wearing the werewolf mask that night, he had the whole experience. He got to fully immerse as being a werewolf. He right down to people beating him down and trying to kill him.
God, that's so funny.
So, the most immediate and striking element to the modern Krampus tradition is the costume itself, of course, which is meticulous, deeply unsettling work of folk art. And that's the point. It is the commitment to its raw, terrifying aesthetic that makes the tradition so powerful. So let's start with the mask. The larvae? Larva? Oh, I'm not German. I'm sorry. And that's not a word that carried over, like knocked, night, clearly conveyed over to English. This word, larv, did not. So, it is a truly authentic Krampus mask, is a work of high craftsmanship and significant reread that. A truly authentic Krampus mask is a work of high craftsmanship and significant expense. The materials are hand-carved and typically from limewood or pine. The carving process can take dozens of hours, if not days or weeks, depending on the level of craftsmanship. Mm-hmm. They are designed to be utterly terrifying, featuring exaggerated devilish expressions, often with long fangs, pointed ears, and detailed wrinkled skin. It reminds me a lot of like the Oni masks from Japan.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's other like traditions, like you see them in like Africa, especially like West Africa is really, I think, well known for this. But
Mhm.
also like some of the native cultures here in America, like I'm thinking of like some of the Inuit cultures and stuff like that. Though I know there's many more that do stuff similar to this, but I
Mhm.
do find that kind of it's cool how universal this experience is. It may look very different, like on the surface level, um, but like ultimately they all have like this shared like deeper
Shared
connection.
humanity. That's
Yeah.
the beautiful part of it. It's shared humanity.
hmm And then there are the horns. The horns. The horns are the most distinctive feature, of course. They are often real horn, sourced from mountain goats, sheep, or rams, and add an organic animalistic menace that cannot be replicated with things like plastic. The body costume is designed for bulk, noise, and intimidation. There's the hide or fell. The suit is made, typically, from real, maybe sometimes fake sheep or goat hides, adding bulk and a shaggy, wild look. It makes the figure look massive and untamed. I've also seen where sometimes they use like birch, um, and like birch you can actually shred and it looks a lot like hair.
Mhm.
Um, so like I've seen that as well. Then there's the chains and bells. They use heavy iron chains and large cowbells, and this is critical. The sound, a deafening, frantic clanking and ringing, is what truly announces and amplifies the terror, creating an acoustic horror show that precedes the beast.
Absolutely. And with the cowbells, they'll actually like kind of deform them a little bit. That way each
hmm
of them has a different loud clank. It is not just
Yeah,
like the clear sound of a cowbell. It is
yeah,
menacing.
and it is quite the opposite of like one of the jingle bell, right? Here in
Mhm.
more like American English and some Northern Germanic and Scandinavian traditions, right? Like where you have like Santa and like the jingle bell of the reindeer, right?
Yeah.
They're all uniform, and because of the way they are, they're musical, right?
Mhm.
And I'm thinking like the Polar Express, right? Like
Oh,
that,
absolutely.
Right. Well, I'm just thinking like that jingle bell, like it's that ring, ring. It's bright and clear, and because they're all uniform, there's a harmony
Mhm.
even if it's a little chaotic. It's a beautiful chaos, right?
Mhm.
Um, or like, and that makes sense, I think, for what it's supposed to represent. But this, like, if you're saying, if they were all the same cowbell, I agree, it'd probably be a little less chaotic. But if they're malformed, different shapes, and everything else, that's gonna be just noise. That's chaos.
Mhm.
Um,
Cuz some of them are going to sound dull, some of them are going to actually have like a metallic ring to it. It really like having that differential. Oh my
mhm,
gosh.
yeah. And then finally, there's the root. That's those birch switches, which is more than a prop. It's a traditional instrument of discipline and a direct connection to the ancient custom of using branches to switch and drive out evil spirits, like wands.
Mhm.
So when a posse of or a posse, I think that's where we get the word
It
actually,
is.
um, of 30 or more elaborately costumed Krampus figures descend on a street. The collective sensory overload of the noise, the smell of burnt wood and leather, and the sheer visual chaos is an unforgettable experience. It is the primal heart of the tradition, beating fiercely in the modern world.
So Krampus has traversed millennia, surviving Christian zealotry, state censorship, and the homogenization of global media. His journey from an ancient alpine spirit to a 21st century viral sensation is a profound demonstration of the human need for mythic balance. He is the shadow that defines the light of Christmas. Now, of course, he can also be the anti-hero. For the most striking development in the 21st century is Krampus's transformation from a regional folkloric punisher into a global pop culture icon. This resurgence is driven by the very forces that define modern consumer culture, the internet, and a growing cynicism towards overly sanitized media. The rediscovery of the disturbing Krampus cartoon on the internet in the early 2000s introduced Western audiences, particularly in America, to a holiday narrative they never knew existed. The image of a horned demon beating children instantly went viral, offering a thrilling counter-narrative to the Coca-Cola Santa. Now, of course, the reaction to commercialism, for many, Krampus became the perfect Christmas anti-hero. He embodies a rebellion against the saccharine, materialistic, and emotionally demanding nature of modern holidays. He is the mascot for the bah humbug sentiment, a character who violently rejects the shallow consumerism that has come to dominate the season. He is a return to an older, harsher moral economy. Behavior matters more than wealth. Now,
Praise
of course,
Jesus. Yes, ma'am.
absolutely. Now, Hollywood, sensing the dark market appeal, quickly capitalized on the figure, further shaping his global image. His breakout moment arrived with films like the 2015 major studio release, Krampus, which, while modifying his traditional role, often making him the opponent of Santa rather than his servant, cemented his visual identity as the ultimate Christmas monster. He has since appeared in countless direct-to-video horror titles, TV shows, and video games. In modern media, the traditional constraints, being chained to St. Nicholas, are often removed. Pop culture Krampus is an unleashed elemental force, a figure of pure, terrifying retribution. This amplification of his horror element fulfills the global appetite for dark tourism and seasonal frights that Halloween typically monopolizes. And honestly, unchaining him from St. Nicholas is returning him to his power.
Yeah, it's going back.
It is.
Yeah, and I don't think that's wrong.
No,
You
not
know?
at all. Not at all.
And also, like we talked about, like, it's a moral economy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Typically, whenever we take steps backward, I go, ooh. But in this case, right?
We go, ooh.
Well, because he represents this idea, right? Like, doesn't matter how rich you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're a bad little shit, you're going to beat your ass. If your parents won't do it, he'll do it.
Absolutely.
And I think that speaks to a lot of people right now. When, in the broader context, when we're seeing people who can get away with things because of their influence, power, wealth, we kind of live vicariously through this moment. And it's sad. It's almost sad that it's fictional, right? But like
Like,
that, like if there was a Krampus in the world, he'd go beat their little asses.
Oh my gosh, we would probably not have billionaires, but...
And I was going to say, and that maybe the world would be a better place.
It certainly would. In my opinion, it certainly would be. So the Krampus image now adorns a huge array of products, from ugly Christmas sweaters and horror-themed ornaments to craft beer labels and gothic apparel. This commercialization, ironic given its anti-materialist appeal, demonstrates his film entrenchment in the contemporary festive landscape. The traditional "Greetings from Krampus" motto has been fully repurposed for the global marketplace. I have no idea how to say that word.
I think it's Grub Krampus. Oh, I'm not German.
I'm not either.
Clearly, that didn't carry over to English. So, ultimately, the enduring story of Krampus is a lesson of mythic duality. The saint and the demon are two sides of the same psychological coin, offering a complete ethical framework, which, is ironic because, of course, the Christians begrudgingly absorbed him, but I think they needed him,
Mm-hmm.
right? Even if it is just as a boogeyman, you need him, right? Because if it's just if you're good, you're rewarded, but if you're a piece of shit, nothing happens.
Mm-hmm.
Is that enough incentive? Probably not. So, without the threat of the goat demon, the rewards of the kind bishop are hollow. As a cultural figure, Krampus reminds us that the holiday season, despite its veneer of perfection, warmth, and everybody just getting along for Christmas, and that even the Grinch can learn from his ways and join consumerism and be there for the roast beast. That's why it's funny because Grinch is our version of Krampus, but
Yes.
that's where he diverges, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's why people like the Grinch. They like the Grinch before the ending. I get it. All these people with their shopping and oh my God, but even that story shows he's not wrong. It's those actions that alienate people,
Mm-hmm.
right? People who can't afford all that, people who just want some quiet time in that old tradition, the old man on top of the mountain who remembers the time before, who remembers the winter, those old traditions of banishing the winter away, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Christmas is also that. It's through its warmth, right? And this connection to get together, Saturnalia, that also was a light in the darkness in a different way, right?
Winter solstice. Mm-hmm.
Right. And neither one of those things are wrong, but all of it is rooted in the oldest of human struggles.
It is.
The confrontation with the long, cold night, the fight against personal vice, and the inevitable consequences of our actions. In the 21st century, Krampus has transcended his Alpine valleys to become a universal figure, a chaotic, cathartic, and necessary reminder that a true Christmas must acknowledge the beautiful terror of the world. He is glorious, shaggy truth, hiding in the sleigh's shadow. The chaos is coming to town.
If you like what you heard today, please give us a positive review on whatever platform you listen to this podcast on. It goes a long way for us to appease the algorithm gods and get this suggested to others just like you. The more that we can connect to our fellow history nerds, the more that we can build up a community and keep the show going.
Also, we have a Patreon where you can hang out with us and get exclusive content, like videos where we might try to make some ancient cookie recipes, talk about topics that couldn't quite fit into the main arcs of the podcast, and just generally being batshit dumpster fires, all for the price of a peppermint latte per month. Research materials and books cost a lot of money, and it takes time to create this show, so anything you could provide would be a huge help.
We can't wait to see you again next week, and as always, thanks for listening.
Happy holidays. Bye, guys.